Hello and welcome to the Pregame Report. Before we get started, we are going to take a moment of silence to honor and remember all of those who lost their lives 20 years today in the 9/11 attacks. Oh, 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 oh. All right, welcome back to the Pregame Report. I'm Alex Dusky, and joining me today are Asa Lucas and Ian Nickel. Ian, welcome back. Asa, this is your first week on the show. Are you excited to talk about some Cowboy football?
Very excited. This is going to be the highlight of my week.
Well, hopefully we can have a good show and a good game today. Last week definitely was not the game that we all expected or predicted. The final score against the Missouri State Bears was 23-16. Shane Illingsworth was the starting quarterback due to Spencer Sanders being out with COVID-19 protocols. He was a little rusty, but, still did well. 22 completions, 315 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. What were your guys' thoughts on Shane last week?
I'm going to just share a quick story of how I felt last week's game was for me. Christmas Eve, 2020, I wanted to get some Raising Canes to celebrate. Going to Christmas, have like some nice caniac combo, some lemonade. It was fun. I was looking forward to it. It was going to be something exciting. I show up, and of course, Canes is closed. And the only restaurant that was open on Christmas Eve was Burger King.
Oh, no.
So you can imagine my disappointment when I'm eating like a Whopper and some fries. That's how I felt last week's game. It was a disappointment, and it let me down, and I'll never forget it.
I don't know if we can really count it as a win. I mean, yes, it's a win in our record. We won by, 7 points? But this was an FCS opponent that we should have and definitely were able to beat defiantly. Ian, what did you think went wrong or just didn't click for the Cowboys last week?
Well, I'll say this. A win is a win is a win is a win.
That is true.
But if there was a win that felt like a loss, it was going to be that one. I mean, Illingsworth, he did what a backup quarterback is supposed to do, and that's kind of game manage. The running game for me was very disappointing. I expected a lot of them this year with L.D. Brown and Desmond Jackson. I thought they'd do a lot more, but they only got 54 yards on 28 attempts.
Right. L.D. Brown only had 30 yards total and 1 touchdown. Tay Martin was the leading receiver, someone that we roughly talked about last week, but we were expecting to see more from Braden Johnson and Brennan Presley. He had 6 receptions, 107 yards, and 1 touchdown, which was the only passing touchdown. What do you think, do you think now that we'll have Spencer, will we see more of that running game? Because I know that we thought, Shane is more of the passing quarterback and Spencer's more of the running quarterback.
Absolutely. Spencer Sanders is quick. He's fast. This is going to be his third year running the ball. I think the big thing is turnover management. I think Mike Gundy and Coach Dunn are going to sit down. They have sat down, and they're going to fix that. And we can finally have like a dual-threat quarterback who's going to be really good. Someone like RG3 or Baker Mayfield. Someone that can bring it and be accurate while throwing the ball and run. I would love it.
We'll dive in more to Spencer and the offense later on in the show. Ian, I want you to tell, what do you think was the highlight of Oklahoma State? Would it be special teams, offense, defense last week, or a key player?
Honestly, it's going to be the defense, and I think my player of the game was Devin Harper. Devin Harper had a phenomenal game. He had 9 tackles, 1.5 sacks, had a fumble recovery, 2 tackles for loss. He was all over the field last week. And, Malcolm Rodriguez also had, 15 total tackles, which is absolutely impressive within itself. But I feel like Devin Harper had a lot more of an impact in terms of just being on the field and getting to the quarterback pretty quickly.
I'll say it. Devin made some key tackles the last 2 minutes of the game, and if we wouldn't have had Devin last week, I don't think we would have won.
I agree with that 100%.
And if you're looking at the silver lining of the game last week, Missouri State never scored more than 7 points in a quarter, which
they did.
Yeah, it was a rough game, but 16 points, that it could be a lot worse than that.
And you could say, they probably gave that touchdown because they were tired. Missouri State, I think, controlled the time of possession pretty significantly. It was like 34 minutes or 35 minutes to Oklahoma State's 25. The defense was just on the field more often. I think they got tired in the fourth quarter.
Do you think that this was us and the team underestimating Missouri State, or do you think it was OSU not playing as we all know they can?
No, I think partially they kind of sleptwalk through the third and fourth quarters because they were pretty dominant in the the first half. They put up 20 points. It's like, okay, the hope is that you score more than 3 points and maybe double your score input, but that did not happen.
I think, like what you said, they just were like, oh, we're up 20 to 3 at half?
20 to 3 at half.
And so they're like, we got them in the bag, and then they just, like you said, just kind of slept through the second half, and that's something that they can't do today against Tulsa at all. I want to talk about, briefly, Jaden Bray. He's a freshman receiver from Norman. He had 2 receptions for a total of 52 yards. It's not much, but it's still nice to see some of these freshman receivers getting some action. What do you guys expect to see from him and then sophomore Brennan Presley in the receiver slot?
I think we're going to want to build up our receiver core again. OSU has had like a history, whether it's Justin Blackman or lots of receivers stepping up and becoming phenomenal All-Americans. So you're going to see more production from him. I think Gundy's going to trust Jaden Bray, and you're going to see the ball thrown a lot. Probably 4 to 5 times a day, I think he'll get thrown at.
Yeah, I think Jaden Bray had a phenomenal first game, with the 2 catches. Had a really good catch on one of his plays. And, I think there was Rashad Owens, freshman out of San Antonio. There's multiple freshman receivers on this receiver core that I could see have a breakout game potentially today.
What about Jalen Warren? He's a senior running back who had 1 touchdown and a few short runs last week. He had a great season in 2019 for 569 yards, 5 touchdowns, 112 attempts, but we just didn't see as much of him last season. Do you think that's because, Chuba and LD had pretty solid seasons last year, or why don't you think we saw him as much?
This guy does have a lot of potential. Like you're talking about looking at his stats. He averaged 6.5 yards per carry last season. But, it's hard to get out of the shadow of L.D. Brown, especially Chuba Hubbard, this All-American running back. So I think Mike Gundy was kind of keeping him in his holster, maybe like a wild card to put out this year that people don't really know about. But
I know. I just hadn't heard his name at all. Like, when I was reading this, I assumed that he was a freshman or a sophomore, but then I saw that he was a senior. I was kind of surprised.
Yeah, the running back room is completely loaded. Like, Dominic Richardson, a sophomore, didn't have any playing time this week, didn't have a single carry. But Jalen Warren, he had 6 carries, 9 yards, and a touchdown. He was getting some handoffs in some key moments. I'll be interested to see if that continues going forward.
Looking at our special teams last week, Alex Hale, this was his first game back after killing his knee in the practice before Bedlam last year, and he missed the first extra point. He then made the single 35-yard field goal that we had. Do you think that was just him getting a little rusty that he missed the extra point, not playing since, last November?
I think it could have been nerves, because that's his first time playing in front of a full crowd in nearly 2 years.
That's true.
He went 18 of 18 extra point-wise last year. So he's a decently accurate kicker. It's just going to be interesting to see, because he didn't miss a kick the rest of the game.
yeah.
Right.
I would assume that was probably just nerves. And, we'll see what happens with the first kick that he has,
today.
Whether it's a field goal or an extra point.
We kind of struggled on the returns. LD dropped, or he didn't really drop it. That was just kind of an unfortunate thing with that return in the second half. Brennan Presley had 51 yards between 4 punt and kick returns. Not as much as we saw from Presley last year. Do you think that's because he was playing more in the receiver and is just getting a little tired, or what do you think kind of happened there?
I think you got a lot of younger guys. The blocks weren't looking as clean or as smooth. I don't know what was happening with the special teams, but I would give him a break. I think he knows what he's still doing. He's really experienced with special teams, but I just didn't like the blocks that were being set up for him. I didn't like the formations, how they were returning the ball. It's hard. It's hard to get a touchdown or at least get like a 20-yard return if your guys aren't setting up proper blocks for you.
There's a lot of fast guys on the team as well, so if he's not getting every punt return, I'm going to be okay with that at the end of the day.
Looking at Tulsa, last week against UC Davis, they had 94 yards returned on 7 kicks and punts. The kicker, Zach Long, made a 41-yard field goal and was 2-2 in extra points. Their punter, Laken Wilson, had 5 punts for 214 yards. Looking at their special teams, who do you guys think has the edge, OSU or Tulsa?
I think Oklahoma State. I think they're a more veteran group. I like what Tom Hudden has done. He had 7 punts. And obviously the key to the game is not punting 7 times in order for Oklahoma State to win. But I think Hudden does a good job. He has like a net lawn of like 52 yards punt-wise. He's averaging 45.4 yards per punt. Tulsa's punter, Wilson, is averaging 42.8 yards per punt. I favor Oklahoma State just because I think they just have faster guys.
And I'm a big fan of that Australian rugby-style punting. That is very dangerous. There's something to say when you can get the ball and start running out, and then you can even go for a fake. And Hutton's pretty quick for a guy his size. He's pretty fast.
For sure.
Before we send it over to Dylan, let's just talk about Tulsa's game last week against UC Davis briefly. They lost 19-17. You know, Tulsa has a lot of returners on defense, not as many on offense. Do you think they're just going to be coming out for revenge this week against OSU, or they're just not the same team we played last year?
Well, they are bringing back 3 defensive players, including one of their big linebackers, Justin Wright. I assume because they're going to bring a lot of people back because of the Armed Forces Bowl brawl, they'll be a much better team coming out of the gate. But, I mean, we'll see how it goes. It kind of depends on their quarterback play, who he didn't play so well against UC Davis.
And there's a stat that astounds me is they had 122 yards in penalties. So I think this Tulsa team is going to be a lot smoother and a lot cleaner. Plus 3 turnovers. That's hard to come back from.
It's tough.
So, Ian, you're giving the edge to OSU on special teams. Asa?
I'd give the edge to OSU.
OSU, I'm going to give it to OSU as well. I think we have the potential, Alex Hales. He's just rusty. I mean, he had an amazing season last year before that unfortunate injury. So I think we'll see a lot out of him. And like you said, hopefully the blockers can do better so that we can see some more return yards from Presley and any of the other returners. We're going to send it over to Dylan Walker, who's outside the Bartlett Center. Dylan, take it away.
Great, thank you guys. And I am here behind the Sarantine Center. The band was just behind me playing some awesome fight songs and playing Amazing Grace in honor of 9/11 being today. But another fun, exciting thing about this weekend, not just football, is that OSU is hosting Family Weekend. So I'm here with my dad, if you want to come in. This is my dad, Tim, and he is in town from California this weekend. Dad, how are you feeling about the game today?
Great, fired up.
Great, awesome. Well, this is his actual first time being here at an OSU football game and at the tailgates. What do you think so far? How's it?
Great. I loved hearing the band, getting us ready for the game. It's a sea of orange out here. It's great to see all the people.
Awesome, yeah. Well, I know last year we had a little bit of a tougher game against Tulsa, but we had a good start to last weekend, or this season, excuse me. Not what we expected, but how do you think we're going to come out today?
I think you guys are ready. I think this is a new team. You got all the bugs out last week, and it's going to be a great game today.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I know that we're going to be having a lot of fun out here. Everyone's high energy, a way bigger crowd than last weekend, and they're all wearing their orange, so can't wait to see the energy, how awesome it's going to translate onto the field. Back to you guys.
All right, thank you, Dylan. And as you guys looked around campus, we're seeing a lot more people on campus. That's because it is Fall Family Weekend. Typically it's Dad's Day and Mom's Day, but due to COVID, they decided to lump it back together. And we do have several parents with us in the studio, so shout out to all the OSU parents on campus and supporting their kids and coming out to watch some Cowboy football.
We are such a Cowboy family that we even have Rob Dusky in the studio with us today. Ooh. It's very exciting. I feel some kind of pressure, even though he's not my father. I still feel like I have to bring my A game today.
100%.
All right. Well, when we come back, we're going to be previewing OSU and Tulsa's offense. Don't go away. All right, welcome back to the pregame report. We are now going to dive into our offensive analysis, starting off with OSU. Let's talk about LD Brown. We kind of mentioned him a little bit. I expect to see him getting more action with Spencer in the pocket. Like we said, he only had 30 yards and 1 touchdown. But I think that's because of Shane throwing the ball more, not necessarily LD's lack of ability. He's a veteran workhorse who knows how to move the ball down the field, and he does get those short runs. What do you guys expect to see from him today?
I just want to say I'm going to be rooting for LD Brown. Mm-hmm. I think you're a senior. You've waited a long time to have your moment in the sun. And here it is. He's got every opportunity. I think with Spencer, the run game's going to open up. And if you're doing a read option, that's going to give LD a lot of chances. But he's good. His production's good. You're behind Chuba Hubbard.
Right.
That's so hard to.
And he's so fast. You know, he's a smaller guy, which the running backs need to be. And I think he just hasn't had his breakout game yet. I mean, there's only been one game, but I don't know if we're going to see it today, but I'm expecting a lot from LD this season.
This is what I'm kind of afraid of. Like, Chuba had the breakout year 2 years ago, right? Mm-hmm, and then in 2020, he kind of, slowed down. The production wasn't as great because of injuries and all of that. Could we be seeing, just because there's more film on LD Brown, a better plan from defenses, like the way they game plan against them? That's a possibility for sure. I'd like to see LD Brown do a lot better today because 15 carries for 30 yards is not going to cut it.
Do you guys think that Tulsa's defense is stronger than Missouri State's?
Oh, absolutely. Theory, yeah. Division I, FBS school, even if it's a Group 5, that's still better than FCS. And keep in mind, he was averaging 5.3 yards per carry last season. Mm-hmm. And that's with teams knowing. That's even with Chuba trying to come up. So teams already have like a 4-3. They're ready to stop the run, and he's still averaging 5 yards a carry. That's not bad at all.
Yeah, and you look at our other running backs. Desmond Jackson, he had 3 carries and then a fumble. How is he going to bounce back from that? Right. We'll see how Jalen Warren does. How will the running back carries be balanced out? Will we see 13 from LD Brown and then like 6 from Warren? Will we see Dominic Richardson play? It all depends on what Gundy's game plan is today. I'd like to see a more balanced approach. That way they keep the defense on their toes.
And it's unique how we still don't have – granted, it's only one game into the season, but we don't have a identity. Like we don't have a Mr. running back at OSU, even though LD Brown is a senior.
Mm-hmm. I think that's something that, like you said, we're just going to have to wait and see it out. But adding on to what Ian said, it is good if we're having players, that are not known, because then the defensives aren't really watching them out as aren't looking for them as much. Switching now to the receiving side of the ball, let's look at Brennan Presley. I was slightly underwhelmed. I didn't expect Tay Martin to be the leading receiver last week. I think that was just my personal error. He did well when he got the ball, and we did get a little taste of his speed last week. But, let's talk about this. Braden Johnson and Tay Martin, they're both out today. And so now looking at it, Brennan Presley's the key receiver. What do you think we're going to see from him, knowing that Spencer is the quarterback?
Well, I mean, you just have to hope that you saw what they did in the Cheez-It Bowl. Because Presley had a dominant Cheez-It Bowl, and so did Spencer Sanders. You also have to look at, your freshmen, again, Rashad Owens, Jalen Bray. How many touches are they going to get? Will it just be, the Sanders to Presley connection all game long, or how is Sanders going to balance that out?
Yeah, Presley didn't, when I was watching the game last week, he didn't look scared to me against Missouri State. I think he's going to be ready for this opportunity. He wants to step up and lead, even though you're a sophomore. At least he has a couple years under his belt. He knows what he's doing, but he's going to get targeted a lot more today, and I think he'll be ready for it.
All last season and even the start of this season, both Coach Gundy and other teammates have spoken so highly of Brennan, not only as a player but as a person. And so I guess that's kind of why I was surprised that he wasn't the number one receiver last week. So I think he has a lot to prove in today's game against Tulsa, since the Martin and Johnson are out.
And he's a special teams history. That's tough. When you got like 200-pound guys running at you full speed trying to knock your helmet off.
And he's a little guy. He's, 5'8", 175?
He's about as tall as you are.
Exactly.
I think the other thing is, Tay Martin's going to be receiver number one just because he's been there as long as he has. He's a fifth-year senior, came out of Washington State, knows the air raid defense because he played under Mike Leach. I think because of that experience, and he had a heck of a game too, 6 catches, 107 yards, and a touchdown. Having those guys as like 1A and 1B, that's a really good core of receivers.
I think it's unfortunate that those two receivers are out today, but I'm glad it's against Tulsa and not, say, Texas or OU. Yeah. Because now this is kind of a more comfortable situation for Brennan and other receivers to kind of step up and take the lead. Now, let's look at Spencer Sanders. He has so much to prove. Just taking a brief recap, 2019 season, he was okay. He was a true freshman. He had a nagging shoulder injury. It was kind of really hard to tell his true talent. Before the 2020 season, Casey Dunn was hired as the offensive coordinator. Gundy had spoken about how much Spencer had been working with the quarterbacks coach, and that he had really filled out to his potential, and everyone was so excited for him. And then started the 2020 season, got hurt in the season opener against Tulsa with an ankle injury, so then Illingworth replaced him. And we all know this. The fans chose Shane. And when you're coming into that atmosphere where they don't want you back and they don't believe that you have the talent, that's hard for Spencer to come in. And so I think that I want him to play well today, because I think he is talented, but no one's giving him the time of day.
I'll tell you this. I think after the Missouri State game, people want Sanders back now. And honestly, you take a look at his numbers. In 2019, in 11 games played, 155 passes completed on 247 attempts. He did the same thing last year in 9 games played. The passing yard total, 265 yards in 2019, 2,007 yards in 2020. So he's putting up about the same numbers in 9 games in 2020 as he did in 11 games played. I think he got hurt in a couple of them, but in total, he is, progressing. I know the stats don't say it, but if you look in context of how many games is being played, he's improving quite a bit.
And you got to look at the interceptions number. Sure, there's less games played. However, pass attempts are still the same. And he has 3 less interceptions, which is always nice to see.
2 less touchdowns as well.
People talk about him with the interceptions, and I think, yes, that is a problem that needs to be fixed. But like you said, Ian, they don't focus on the good and the yards that he is getting and the points that he's putting up on the board. And I think just being he's a junior now, he has more experience under his belt. I think that's really important, just especially now with the younger offense in the receiving core. He is a more mobile quarterback than Shane. He'll run the ball if he needs to. So do you guys predict that we're going to see more of an even with passing yards, rushing yards, or it's going to be more of a run-heavy game?
What I'm seeing is a pretty even game. I mean, the last 2 seasons he rushed in 2019 139 times, and then in 2020 101 times. So that's like 40 less attempts. So he's going to be wary of getting hurt. And if you have a really good season, he could potentially start looking at an NFL career. If you have a breakout season this year, the NFL loves mobile quarterbacks. They love it. Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson, they love seeing that. But I think it's going to be even. They're going to still focus on him throwing it. However, in those emergency situations, he'll have no problem scrambling.
Well, he will need to have more yards than last year. Last year, he had 269 yards on 101 attempts. Not great. In 2019, he was averaging 4.5 yards on 139 attempts, 628 yards. You need to see more of 2019 Sanders when it comes to running the ball in order to have that breakout career, like you're saying.
Absolutely.
Do you think, you mentioned him being weary of injuries. Do you think he's like, oh my gosh, it's Tulsa, they're the ones that, took me out for a couple weeks last year, knowing that it's basically the same defense as last year? Or do you think doesn't really have that mental block?
I think there's going to be that chip on his shoulder. I think he's going to look at Tulsa and he's going to be upset. He's going to be angry, like, this team hurt me? Are you kidding me? So he's going to come out. I don't think he's going to have any fear, and he's going to want to show everyone in Stillwater, I am not the quarterback that throws interceptions. I'm not the quarterback that fumbles the ball. I'm the quarterback that's going to win. I'm going to be the quarterback to take you to the Big 12 championship, even if you don't believe in me right now.
Well, here's the key. No Zaven Collins. Zaven Collins was a beast last year for Tulsa. He just got drafted into the NFL by the Arizona Cardinals. That's a big hole, and that's a big loss for that Tulsa defense. So Tulsa's defense is stout, but I feel a little better about them this year than I did last year.
Let's look at Tulsa's offense. They have the junior quarterback Davis Brin. Last week he had 201 yards, 15 completions out of 28 attempts. He played a little bit last season, nothing major. An interesting stat I found is that last season he had 2 touchdowns and no interceptions. Last week he had no touchdowns and 2 interceptions. What do you guys think we'll see from him today? Do you think our defense is going to be able to contain him?
Well, if he puts up that performance, yes. He had a QBR of 10.1. Woof. Obviously, if you're Tulsa, you hope he plays a whole lot better because 15 of 28, 200 yards and no touchdowns isn't going to cut it. But they have a good running back system with Dendrick Prince, the junior out of Manville, Texas, and then the 5th-year senior Shamari Brooks, who we were talking about last year coming into the Tulsa game that he's going to be a player to watch out for. He tore his ACL last year. He's back now, and he had 10 carries and 80 yards last week.
247 rushing yards. That's what Tulsa brought in against UC Davis. That's an impressive number. You don't see that nowadays. Most schools are pass-focused. 240. That's almost 250 yards of rushing.
And Deneric Prince had 151 of those yards. Keelan Stokes was their leading receiver last week. He had 95 yards. The team had 201 total receiving yards. So like we said, they're kind of more of an even-keeled offense, which I think we're expecting to see more from OSU's offense today. Let's talk about our O-line. They looked pretty clean last week. Shane only got sacked once. Do you think they played as we expected them to?
Regardless of expectations, they were definitely better than last season. When
That's
we
true.
were playing with backups, and I felt like all the linemen were held together by duct tape and Band-Aids. So it was nice to see only one sack. Like, I will take that. That is a major improvement.
And, Tulsa last week, they had, I think, 1 sack. So if there's not that much pressure, this could be a nice field day for Spencer Sanders.
All right, so what do you guys think? Who has the edge, OSU or Tulsa? Ian, we'll start with you.
I think despite, Tay Martin being out, allegedly, I think Oklahoma State has the edge because of the better quarterback play in Spencer Sanders, and I think Presley's going to have a big game today.
I'm going to say OSU has the edge because Spencer Sanders is focused. He's going to want to put up some big points, and then throw in the fact that UC Davis's defense, again, you need to keep in mind they got 3 sacks on Tulsa. 3 sacks, Division I and UC Davis. I don't know how that happens, but with that kind of that kind of offensive line play, their offensive line is going to struggle against what OSU's bringing. OSU has the edge.
I'm going to give OSU the edge as well. And I do want to elaborate, Ian, on what you said about Tay Martin. We've had two different reports. One says that he is a game time decision. One says that he's definitely out with an ankle injury. So we are going with that he's not going to play. If he does, it's not going to be as much. And so that's why we're expecting to see a lot from Brennan Presley. And I have faith. I think we're going to see a lot of that Sanders to Presley ratio today, and they're gonna connect. I also think that, we're going to see LD Brown, Desmond Jackson step up and hopefully see a more even passing rushing ratio today. We're going to send it back over to Dylan outside the Bartlett Center. Dylan?
Great, thank you guys. And I know we have a great game on our hands today. OSU versus Tulsa is always such an exciting game. And I know that the crowd is ready. I know that the Cowboys are definitely going to be ready. They don't want to lose. They never want to lose. But something interesting also is that the Big 12 extended 4 more invitations to UCF, Cincinnati, Houston, and BYU, which will put some pressure on the Cowboys. It's definitely going to have to give them a little bit of just a push, just to get it going a little bit more. But I definitely think it'll be some great competition for them, and I definitely think it'll be some exciting games. So I can't wait to see what that is going to do for the Cowboys and see how that's going to affect them this year, see if that's even going to make a mark or just kind of just see how it's going. But anyways, I know that Tulsa is coming ready. I know that the Cowboys have been practicing all week, but Tulsa always puts up a tough fight against OSU, so I'm excited to see how it goes. Back to you guys.
All right, thank you, Dylan. And she did bring up something, the 4 new teams. Ian, you're a big Cincinnati fan. What are your thoughts on this expansion?
I like Cincinnati, but I think this makes the Big 12 look like a group of 6 conference now. I think this move, which there wasn't much the Big 12 was going to do, but it looks like they got a nice coat of paint on a sinking boat. That's what it really looks like to me. BYU, Cincinnati, Houston, UCF, this is great for their brand, but in terms of the rest of the Big 12 schools, this makes the conference a lot weaker. There's no blue blood in the conference now, no traditional blue blood. This is probably going to backfire more than it helps. It's going to keep the Big 12 afloat, but I don't think this is going to go well for the pocketbooks of the rest of the teams in the Big 12.
Asa, quick take.
I'm going to have to respectfully disagree. I think BYU and UCF bring a nice brand to the Big 12, personally.
All right, well, that won't happen for a couple of years, so don't go away. We're going to dive into our defensive analysis after this break.
Oh, there you go. Superstar.
The end of the practice is when we do all of our, intensity drills.
Okay.
She was going at it.
Stop. If we get them to Detroit by, let's say Monday the 15th. Time's right there. There we go. Yeah. Just, you can't.
Don't want to talk about it.
When you see the water tower, you're gonna make a right.
If we win this, we have one way to get to the playoffs.
I know.
All right, welcome back to the pregame report. Before we dive into the defense, we do want to say we have reports that Tay Martin is out in warmups in full uniform, but is still a game time decision. So what do you think that means?
I think Mike Gundy's keeping him there. He's ready if he needs him, but I hope there's no rush to it. Against Tulsa, we'll be fine. We're 10-0 against them in the last 10 years. Don't risk injury just to win against Tulsa. At least save him for Big 12 play if you're going to rush him out.
Time out. Do you remember last year? That was almost an upset alert. It was 16-7.
But we did have to play Drew Brown and then true freshman quarterback Shane Illingworth because Spencer went out.
I know. I'm just saying. And we saw what happened last week. I know those were the backup quarterback, but if you need to play him, then play him.
I just don't want to risk it.
I understand.
Would you rather lose Tay Martin for the season or lose today's game?
Neither.
I'll take losing the game if it means getting us to a Big 12 championship.
Well, hopefully it doesn't come to that, but we felt the need to update everyone on that situation, so be sure to tune in at 11, see if he actually plays. Let's switch over now to defense. Talking about Malcolm Rodriguez, as expected, he led the defense statistically last week. He had 15 total tackles, 1 tackle for loss, and 3 QB rushes. He's a senior. This is his 5th year playing with the team, and his experience shows.
I like how tough Malcolm Rodriguez is. You can always count on him to be wherever the play ends. If it's a running play, I promise you he will be, if not on top of the running back, he will be within a yard or two. He's arguably, I think, our toughest guy on defense.
He was kind of all over the place last week. I mean, you mentioned the 15 total tackles, 9 solo, 1 tackle for loss. He's had a phenomenal game. He's had a phenomenal season last year. I mean, he's kind of the anchor of that Cowboy linebacking core, and he's been doing a phenomenal job all season. And let's see if we can replicate those stats against Tulsa this week.
Yeah, he had 3 QB hurries last week. That's more than anyone else on the team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's look at Colby Harvell Peel. He had 7 total tackles. The teams know to avoid him, so that's why his statistics don't necessarily show his talent, and he's a menace on the defense. What do you think? Do you think we'll see the stats that show his talent this week, or do you think he'll just be a force that Tulsa doesn't want to mess with?
I think because Trey Sterling is out for the first half, Harvell Peel is going to have to be that number 1 safety. So I think odds are you will see more of Harvell Peel in the first half, and then when Trey comes back in, he's going to, kind of mellow out. But, I mean, you saw it right there in that Iowa State game. Like, he can make big-time plays, and I think he has the potential to make a really good interception today, knowing what we know about the quarterback for Tulsa. I think Colby Harvell Peel could have a nice little breakout game.
He could, even though Tulsa is more of a running team. I think they are going to try to risk it. They're going to try to throw some deep balls and see if there's any kind of magic that can happen there. But I mean, he's a senior. He knows what he's doing. He's ready to go. He'll make a big play today.
Ian, you mentioned Trey Sterling. He is missing the first half it was an unfortunate targeting call. It was targeting, but I don't think it was on purpose at all. It was just unfortunate that happened. So the redshirt junior Jason Taylor will replace him in the first half. What do you guys think we'll see from that? I know Colby will likely step up into Trey's spot, but now that we have Jason Taylor on the field, what kind of dynamic do you think that'll create?
I think Jason Taylor is an interesting guy. I think he had a really big play against Kansas State a couple years ago, or I guess last year, where it was an 85-yard fumble recovery. He can make the plays needed to make plays. Like, he's going to be fine. The safety corps is going to be fine. There's Tana Mcallis there as well. So losing Trey Sterling for a half is really tough, but I think this Oklahoma State safety corps is up for the challenge.
Let's look at some players to watch. Now, first guy, we talked about him last week, Devin Harper. He's from Knoxville, my hometown. I watched him play in high school a little bit. He is out today with an ankle injury. And we talked about how crucial he was to the game last week. He had 9 tackles, 1.5 sacks, 2.5 tackles for loss, and 2 QB hurries, in addition to a recovered fumble. He's gonna be replaced by sophomore Mason Cobb. What do you think this loss is gonna be to the defense?
I think it's a big one, but I'm confident in Mason Cobb's abilities. The man with the afro, he had a really nice sack last week against Missouri State. Really vicious blow to the Missouri State quarterback. I think they'll be fine, but losing Devin Harper is going to be tough, and I'd like to see Mason Cobb step up.
Yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, he's a sophomore. I think you have to say a lot about age. Like, if you're a freshman coming into a position like this, you are going to be nervous. You're not going to know what you're doing. But he's been on the team a couple of years. Yeah, he had that sack. He can show that in the big moments when everyone's watching him, when you need a big play, he got it. He got the sack, and he took that momentum away from Missouri State.
And Devin Harper, I mean, statistically, he's been one of the defensive leaders that he's not mentioned as much. And I think if Cobb can step up and fill that hole, or if he can't, we'll really see what Harper means to this defense. Let's look at Tana Mcallis. He's another solid aspect of the defense. He had 7 tackles last week. He had a great season last year. I didn't really see as much from him as we did last week. What do you think we'll see from him today?
He still had a really solid game, 7 tackles, 3 solo. I think we're going to see the same old Tana Mcallis, and he's gonna be on it this week.
Each year, he's gone up. His first year was 11 tackles, 2019 30 tackles, 2020 41 tackles. So yeah, he's going to be ready to go. He's going to want to make a name for himself and let everyone know, my senior year at OSU, I'm going to do something remarkable. I'm going to leave a legacy here. That's what I think everyone who comes to Stillwater, they see Boone Pickens Stadium. They see kind of the history. Granted, we don't have the most Big 12 championships in football, but there is legacy here. There is trophies here. And the fans, we love football. I think the players want to have their names etched like Barry Sanders.
That's true. Switching now to Brock Martin. He's a senior. This is his 4th season with the team. He had a pretty solid season last year. Last week he had 5 tackles, half sack, half tackles for loss, and 2 QB hurries. What do you think we'll see from him today?
I mean, he's going to be he's replacing Trace Ford for the rest of the year. I like what Brock Martin brings to the table. He's an Oklahoma guy, in that defensive end position. I think he's going to have I think he'll be fine the rest of the season. He's not Trace Ford, but because there's a really solid defensive line with Tyler Lacey and Tyler Irby around him, as well as Colin Clay and Brandon Evers, the defensive line is going to be fine. And Brock Martin could, sneak his way in there on the defensive end position.
I mean, 6'3", 250, even though this is a Division I offensive line, I mean, you can still manhandle your way around some of these guys. And he's had 3 fumble recoveries in his career. He knows how to get turnovers. I think he'll be fine. And it goes back to him being a senior again. This is a guy who's been at Oklahoma State for a long time. He's a fellow Okie himself. I'm sure his family will be at the game today. They're going to be excited to cheer him on, and he's going to want to show him something. Whether that's a fumble or a sack, he'll have an exciting play today for sure.
Ian, we were talking about it before the show. You want to see an interception day from this defense. Do you think we'll get one, or more than one today?
I think it's due. I don't know. Considering what we saw last week, I don't know if we'll get 2 interceptions, but I think that there will be an interception today. It just depends on how the coverage is set up and when is Trey. I mean, we know Trey Sterling's coming back in the second half, but can Sterling make an impact early on in the second half?
So you mentioned that we're going to expect to see Tulsa probably run the ball more. Do you think we'll get some ball strips and fumble recoveries?
I do. Tulsa in the fourth quarter on their drive to take the lead and try to win against UC Davis, they fumbled right on the goal line, and that's a big pressure moment that is right there to take the win, and they fumbled. And again, this is against a UC Davis this is a team that's not going to be remarkable. Sure, they were 23rd in the FCS, but there should be something said about Division I against FCS teams. There's a reason. There's a big divide there, and you fumble the ball. So I do. I think we're going to get 2. I'm going to predict 2 fumbles. 2 fumbles.
All right. Well, hopefully
Tulsa.
we can see that from the defense. Let's look at Tulsa's defense. Last week they didn't have any recovered fumbles or interceptions. The team had 97 total tackles compared to OSU's 79 total tackles last week. They had 9 tackles for loss, but only 1 sack. Ian, who do you think their key defensive player is?
Well, it's a guy coming back from the Armed Forces Bowl brawl, and that's Justin Wright. Joseph Gillespie, the Tulsa defensive coordinator, really likes what Wright brings to the table. I think he was a AAC second team member. I think he's gonna have a good impact on today's game. And also, you look at Kendron Ray, leading tackler against UC Davis with 13 total tackles. The 1 sack came with John Michael Terry, the senior linebacker, with Tulsa's lone sack. He's a transfer from OU. This is his 5th year playing. He transferred from OU this past season.
I really like Kendron Ray. I'm a big numbers guy. 2019, he had 40 tackles. And then in 2020, he had this huge breakout season, 63 tackles and 44 individual tackles by himself.
I think they also need to look out for Robert Rebels III. He had a good amount of tackles, and he had the most tackles for last week against UC Davis. What do you think if with the mobile quarterback and Spencer Sanders, do you think that'll cause some issues for the Tulsa defense today? Do you think they'll be able to keep up?
I think it could.
There's a reason why scrambling quarterbacks or mobile quarterbacks in the NFL are so valued and so highly valued. It's hard to tackle somebody that's quick and elusive and strong. So yeah, that's definitely UC Davis's quarterback, Hunter Rodriguez. He was not known for like scrambling. He wasn't that quick. He's more of a pocket passer. And he was fine. Only one sack on him the whole day. So I do think Spencer Sanders is going to cause a lot of issues for Tulsa.
Are there any players, we mentioned the 6 key OSU players. Are there any more that you think we should be looking out for today that we might not have necessarily mentioned already?
I'm thinking, we mentioned Mason Cobb already. Thinking maybe Jabbar Muhammad. He was a cornerback with 2 tackles and half a sack. I'd like to see how he does because that cornerback position is a little tough. There's also Bernard Converse, and I'm very interested to see how the cornerbacks do in this next game.
I mean, if you want to look at Colin Oliver, the guy had half of a sack. I mean, numbers do speak more than expectations or headlines. And you're a freshman, you're coming in, you're 6'2", 225. You're strong, and you got half a sack as a freshman your debut game. So he could be a surprise. He could do some damage.
Looking forward in seasons to come, all the guys we've mentioned are juniors, seniors, even fifth-year seniors. What have you heard about the freshmen or even the recruiting class coming in next year of the defensive side of the ball for the Cowboys?
I think the recruits that are coming in, I think they'll be solid. They'll be solid because what Jim Knowles has been doing the past couple of years has been nothing short of phenomenal. The Big 12 is known as like kind of the laughing stock for defenses. Jim Knowles is putting that, not necessarily myth, but he's putting that truth to shame.
Do you remember the stat? What was it? We were like 6th in the nation, I think, last year for defense. OSU was ranked pretty high with their defensive ability.
Well, that and then their third down efficiency was really high as well.
That's true.
Last week they went 6 for 18, so about 1/3 efficiency-wise when it came on the defensive end.
And even though we disagree on it, Ian, with the 4 teams added to the Big 12 expansion, that's still exciting. That's 4 more teams. That's 4 different cities to come play at, and I think teams are going to be excited. Before, it was like, okay, what's going to happen to OSU? But you can see, the Big 12 is going to stay around. They're not going to become some independent school. So I think players would be like, yeah, why not? That'd be exciting to go play at UCF or play down in Houston against the Cougs.
So for who has the edge, Ian, who do you think, OSU or Tulsa?
Defense-wise, I got to go clear OSU. OSU just has the better players, have the better talent, even though Devin Harper is out. There's also Corey Black, who had a fumble recovery. He had a really good game last week. I think there's just so many playmakers on the field for the Cowboy defense that it's such a huge edge, for sure.
No doubt in my mind, Oklahoma State definitely has the edge. I mean, you allowed UC Davis to have 3 sacks on you. Imagine what Oklahoma State's defense is going to do.
I'm going to pick OSU as well, and I think it is important to note, like what we said to start the show, we need to stay sharp. Kind of towards that 3rd and 4th quarter, the defense didn't really perform as best as they could, so I think as they stay sharp, we'll definitely even if that happens again, I think we still do have the edge. And so just to clarify, we all picked OSU to have the edge in all 3 categories today?
Absolutely.
Yep.
All right, well, you guys heard it here. OSU has the edge today. We're going to send it over to Dylan for the last time today outside the Bartlett Center.
Awesome, thank you guys. And I am here with OSU alumni Chance. Do you want to introduce yourself a little bit? Tell us about your OSU experience.
Yes, my name is Chance Davidson. Finished here back in 2008. Met a lot of great people. Ag business was one of my big deals. The greatest thing about this school is the camaraderie that we build, the unity that we build, and just all the great friendships that I've created over the past, and they still live on decades later. So I'm just really happy to be here and continue to support my Pokes.
Yeah, that's awesome. For sure, camaraderie is one of the biggest things I feel like OSU has to offer. So we didn't get to tailgate last year, and I'm sure that was a big bummer. I know I was super bummed about that. How are you feeling about being back this year, full swing?
Wonderful. I mean, For everybody else, I think just the weather, once it sets in, I mean, the attitudes change. Everybody
sure.
starts to open up, start breathing this good air. And with that agricultural background, too, you know, thank God for ivermectin is one thing that I'd like to say for that.
Yes, for sure. I know that the Pokes are ready. They're feeling good about the game today. I think we're going to walk away with a big win against Tulsa. You were telling me earlier you're from Tulsa. So I say we stick it to them today and walk away with a win. What do you think the game, what's your score prediction for the game today?
Oh, gosh. I'd have to say we got them by 21 for sure.
All right.
We just got to bring our game today, hold on to the ball. As long as we hold on to the ball and continue to run hard, I think we'll be great.
Great, awesome. Yeah, I know the Pokes have been training hard. They're ready to hit it head on today. And the crowd is ready, the energy is high, the tailgating is wrapping up. People are heading over to the stadium right now. But thank you again, Chance, for being here today. And yeah, excited. Let's have a great day. Back to you guys.
Go Pokes.
All right, thank you, Dylan. You know, Ian, you and I and Grayson talked last week about the tailgaters. You guys had missed last season due to COVID. Asa, this is your third year here. What do you think about seeing all these people back in Stillwater for game day?
It's an exciting feeling. I remember last year, there was a lot of despair with COVID, and the games just weren't as special or as loud. But as I was walking today to the studio and just seeing all the parents and all the orange, it's comforting. It's like being at home.
I didn't realize how empty Boone Pickens was last season until I went to the game last week, and I was like, there's no seats. There's just people everywhere. All right, we're going to go into our buy or sell. So, Ian, take it away.
All right, so we have a couple of buy or sell questions for you guys. I think I only came up with, no, there we go. There's 4. So, buy or sell, Spencer Sanders will have 2 or more turnovers.
I'm going to sell. The reason why, hear me out. Growing up, I always heard something from my parents. The best indicator for future behavior is past behavior. So normally, you can tell how a person does or how they live their life, their actions in the past is going to tell a lot about their future. Reason why I say sell. So in 2019, Spencer Sanders, he's dropped 7 fumbles and he lost 5 of them. Then in 2020, he fumbled 5 times and he lost 3. So I think you see there, goes to 7 to 5, then he lost 5, then lost 3. I think he's got it under control this year. I really do. I think he's going to quit it with the turnovers. I think he's going to tuck the ball. He's going to slide when he needs to, and he's not going to risk anything because he knows he has that reputation of being the quarterback that can't hold the ball. Mm-hmm. And like we heard that fan say, he's talking about fumbles. If can OSU keep the fumbles? That's got to be irritating, man. That has got to be irritating as a quarterback.
Alex.
I'm going to sell as well. I think Spencer will have 1 turnover. It might be one of those strip sack type of deals, but like you said, he has it more under control. But first game back, lots of nerves. I just think he'll have 1.
Okay. Next question on buy or sell. OSU's defense will hold Tulsa's rushing to under 150 yards. Ace and Alex, buy or sell?
Alex, what do you think?
I'm going to buy it. I think that OSU's defense, despite having those injuries, the defense cannot compare to Tulsa's offense, and I think we're going to have them in the bag and contain them.
Okay.
I'm going to agree with Alex. Even though 247 rushing yards from Tulsa, that was against an FCS defense. Mm-hmm. Oklahoma State's going to be ready. Brock Martin, Malcolm Rodriguez. These guys are going to know. They're going to be close to the line, ready to blitz at any time and contain the rushing.
All right, question number 3. Will Spencer Sanders have 30 completions on Saturday? Buy or sell?
Sell. Spencer has never had 30 completions before. He got close versus Texas and Miami last season. He had 27. Most of the time he was averaging about 20 completions. I still think he'll have a good game, but we have to remember we're the Oklahoma State Cowboys, not the Dallas Cowboys. Spencer Sanders doesn't need to throw as many times as Dak Prescott did to win the game.
They ended up losing that game, huh?
Well, yeah, but they were close.
Just to throw in some controversy, I'm going to buy that.
Ooh.
Okay.
I think Spencer Sanders wants to build a reputation that he can be a passer and he can look good. And he's getting closer to his time. And like any quarterback at a Division I school, especially Big 12, I'm sure you all have dreams of playing in the NFL. So if you can get 30 completions in your first game, that sends a strong message. And I think Mike Gundy trusts him, especially compared to, he threw it a lot with Illingworth. That was over 40 times, right?
I think so.
So but that was my kind of thinking too, was that because, Illingworth is, more of a pocket passer. If Sanders is more accurate, if he can get 40 attempts off, he might be able to get 30 completions.
Yeah.
But what about knowing that we're missing a couple of our key receivers?
I think
the
it's
other thing.
I think it's tough for sure. All right. Final question in buy for sell. Malcolm Rodriguez will have 12 or more tackles today. Buy or sell? He had 15 last week.
I'm gonna buy it. Like you said, he had 15 last week alone. Last season, his highest was 11 tackles against OU, and he got 10 against Tulsa last year. Tulsa's offense is not the same offense as we played last year, so I think he can do it.
No controversy on my end with you, Alex. I agree. Malcolm Rodriguez, he's proven he knows what he's doing. He's physical. He's intelligent as a defensive player. He'll have at least 12 tackles for sure.
All right, and then now that we have completely analyzed both teams, let's go into our predictions. So, Ian, you want to start us off?
Gladly. So last week
You were very off.
I goofed up. I thought Sanders was playing. So I had it. My Missouri State score was 51-7. I've dialed it back a little bit. I'm going with another Oklahoma State win, 31-10 this time, under the point total.
Asa?
I'm going over the point total. I think this is going to be a big points game for OSU. Spencer Sanders is back. Everyone's wanting to know, how are you going to do? He's going to be dynamic. He's going to be sharp. He's going to be quick with running and not only with passing. I think he's going to have a lot better release this year. That's why I gave him 34 points. I think we're going to see a couple field goals as well. They're both going to be made. And then Tulsa, they've had a lot to learn from UC Davis. You're not going to see over 100 penalty yards or 3 turnovers. They're going to get that under control. That's going to get them into the end zone a lot, at least 2 touchdowns and 2 field goals.
I mean, out of everyone that gave the score prediction, you gave Tulsa the most amount of points today. So my prediction is 31-17. Like you said, I expect to see a higher scoring offense than last week, just due to the atmosphere and the excitement of the team with Spencer being back, and also the energy of the stadium. I'm expecting to see a little bit more fans, knowing that this is an in-state rivalry, bigger game than the FCS school last week. I also do expect to see Tulsa getting more points than we allowed Missouri State due to missing Trey and Trace Ford on the field. Let's take a quick minute to preview next week's game. Cowboys, it's their first road game. They'll be going against Boise State. It's an 8 p.m. Central kickoff. They faced each other one other time back in 2018, and it was home. The Cowboys won 44-21. This is their first time playing on the blue turf. What do you guys expect to see out of that game?
Now, that's a game that scares me. Boise State, even though they're 1-1, how they played against UTEP last night, that was impressive. Wow, their offense looked ready to go. Their special teams, they had a punt return for a touchdown. It was like Boise State decided to forget about their first game and just play. And it's a tough environment up there in Boise.
I saw a couple of key mistakes in that UCF game, which makes me a little more hopeful. But real quick, I kind of want to talk about the producers' predictions.
Oh, okay.
20-17 was their prediction, Oklahoma State's. That's very close.
That is close.
I kind of like it. Good on you. And then
I don't want to see it.
I don't want to see it.
Nobody does.
But that's a sneaky good prediction.
So, do you think, who do you think will be the most accurate? Do you think the Cowboys will take it away, blow them out of the water? Do you think it is going to be a close game?
I mean, hopefully my prediction works. Are we keeping track of who's winning this year? Because we did that last year.
I know I got 3 of the 4 buys or sells last week, so I think we probably should try and keep up with all those things.
We got to find out who won last week, and then obviously who wins this week, because we got to keep track of that.
I mean, I wouldn't be here if my football knowledge wasn't exemplary. So I think it's going to be at least 14 points. OSU will be winning.
The spread is, I think, 12.5, so it's going to be around there for sure.
We'll go with 14. All right, well, the Cowboys are going out to take the field here in a couple of minutes. 11 a.m. kickoff against Tulsa. FS1 has the coverage if you're not out here. Thank you again for watching. I'm Alex, along with Asa and Ian, and go Pokes!
Hey, go Pokes.
Hi everybody, my name is Emily Shooping. I'm your marketing coordinator for the Made in Oklahoma Coalition. I'm coming to you with an amazing opportunity. We are teaming up with the Ocali Media Group at Oklahoma State University. We want to tell your story on the following platforms: streaming, newspaper, and digital. This opportunity will not only allow your story to be told locally, but nationally as well. I am so excited for each of you to join in on this tremendous opportunity. This will not only be good for your business, but it will be good for our great state of Oklahoma. You can be expecting an email from me soon with more details about this opportunity. Local has a name, local has a face, local has a flavor. The Made in Oklahoma Coalition.